Hello, Alexandra here. Today I'm going to talk about the superpowers of stage turquoise. And I'm going to speak to early turquoise because I have not been to the middle or exiting turquoise. But I am going to talk about not so much about the traits of turquoise, which is a more flowing and a more wu-wei stage than stage yellow or teal and integral. And of course, the superpowers of stage yellow are meta systems and being highly effective and innovative and solving problems you never thought you could solve sometimes. And by meta system, I mean a system full of other systems. Yellow has a large breadth and depth of capability, complexities and capacities, but turquoise is more of a flowing state. And again, I'm only in early turquoise, so I haven't gotten deep into the Wu Wei. And I'm also not going to talk about the cities or the so-called powers that turquoise gets. I'm not sure how real that is, or if that happens to everyone at turquoise, or if that happens more to people who are in, say, for example, a spiritual community. Maybe I think I've heard of a spiritual community in India that Chris at Shores of Infinity does videos, and he's been through turquoise, and I think he mentions the cities in one of his videos. Well, I don't have them, so I'm not going to talk about them. I may never get them. They're supposed to be powers, and one of them is enhanced healing ability, maybe self-healing, so that would be nice. Or maybe we all have that and we don't know it. But I'm not going to speak to it because I don't know about it. But what I can speak to is the state. So even in early turquoise, it's a little bit easier than at late yellow, and a little bit easier at some of the earlier stages because the state is a pleasant feeling where there's just a little bit less pain and increasing peace and well-being, and for me, a feeling of an increase in being held by the all. So the things that bother me, or when my parts are triggered, or they're just less intense, much less intense. And in fact, when I deepen sometimes a little bit more into early turquoise, verging on the middle of turquoise, not there yet, I can barely even feel those parts. Like, we all have parts and we all have triggers, but sometimes we just don't feel them as much when we're going into a deeper state of well-being. So, turquoise and beyond, it's just we are not in as much pain as we can be when we're triggered or our parts are reactive. But I will say transitions between stages, like between turquoise and coral, I've heard can be extremely difficult. So I don't want to generalize. And but I want to talk about why bother trying to work through the stages. I have a video series on green moving to yellow, and the very first video is benefits of moving to yellow. We want to, quote, get something out of our efforts. If we're going to study this, using spiral dynamics can be very useful. The paradigm itself can help us move through the stages, and yellow is a lot easier than stage green and a much more effective stage, and turquoise is easier than yellow. And so this is a basic practical reason why we might want to work on our parts and work on ourselves to help us move through the stages, to integrate our parts and to meditate and to study the stages, just so our life can be a little more effective and a little easier. And I've done several videos on parts work, and in the videos, it's parts work, parts work, parts work, parts work. But what do we do if we're going, say, once a week? In between, we don't want to be obsessed throughout the week with all of these parts, because when we're doing parts work actively with a professional, we have a lot of internal parts, and some of these can be vulnerable or hurt parts. It becomes safe for those parts to come out and express themselves. So in between sessions, those parts are still out. And at yellow, we might just get busy with fun stuff. Yellow is a very independent stage. Yellow's into all sorts of interesting things. Yellow is it's a stage of radical self-responsibility, and it's a very scrappy stage. Yellow will just, instead of wallowing in the parts in between sessions, either try to integrate the parts themselves, mimicking the techniques they learn in the sessions. But if that doesn't work, yellow will likely just get busy with something fun. And what turquoise is a little bit different. Turquoise is a less hyper-agentic stage. So here are some things that anybody can use, but that turquoise might use, or that I'm using, to enjoy myself during this period I'm doing of parts work, so that I'm not stuck in the parts all week, because they're coming out left and right, because now they're used to coming out, they're used to showing themselves, they're used to being safe. And so we might be a little bit tender when we're doing parts work, even in between the sessions. So one thing I'm doing that's really fun during the week is a practice called Lester's Love. And Lester Levinson was a physicist, and in 1942 his doctor told him that he was not going to live. He was very sick. He became very angry at the doctor, angry at life, and while he was laying there in bed, he just decided to generate love. Generate love towards everyone, thinking of people, generating love while he's laying there. He got completely well, miraculously well, and lived into his mid-80s. So he lived 40 more years. And you can look online. There's some videos and practices on Lester's Love. What I do is I like to look online. I kind of cheat a little bit. This is kind of fun. I look at videos of babies or of pets, and I'll look at these videos until I'm smiling or laughing or kind of feeling love at these cute little babies or the adorable pets, the misadventures of pets or cats, like jumping and accidentally landing in the aquarium into the water, and all these crazy things the pets do. And then I'll just sort of hold that feeling and just sort of throw that love a little bit at maybe a couple of people who I might say are a teeny bit of spiritual sandpaper in my life. And we need to remember, though, first and foremost, this is another practice you could do, is just everything is constructed. Our thoughts are constructed. All of our psyches are different, because we, along with our family and environment and interacting with our parents and our childhood, constructed a whole identity. And technically even our parts are constructed, although I don't find that to be useful. If I just sit here and pontificate on, these parts are constructed, I've done nothing to integrate them. So while yes, some things are constructed, we still can reach out for those professional resources to help us deal with integrating some of these parts. But what I really want to do is, instead of being at stage yellow, where I would just get busy with something really interesting and really fun, is to just do a negation. Like, if I'm calling someone in my life spiritual sandpaper, it is likely that I and that all of us are projecting. We project constantly. We project our shadow or parts we haven't integrated onto other people. So while other people may not be behaving perfectly, it's likely or highly possible that we could also be projecting onto them and pulling back those projections. And I don't go full on with the Lester's love practice. Like I said, I cheat a little bit. I watch the video, I throw a little love in my mind those people's way. Of course, we can still be discerning, we can still set boundaries, we can still give an honest appraisal in our minds of people. We're not going to, just because we're in a loving state, which we're doing for ourselves, it's not going to stop us from setting boundaries. But so remembering to take back projections, especially if you're going through a difficult situation with somebody where you might not have done anything. Maybe somebody's in their stuff and it's just this interaction for you is challenging, and you're in the process of making some decisions around that, about maybe you want to step away from the relationship or distance yourself a little bit, or maybe you're working on your detachment. So there could be a multiplicity of options that you're looking at. But in the meantime, Lester's love and just remembering not to project are two really, really useful things that we could do at Turquoise or do it at any stage. Taking the bullet points from these videos, regardless of whatever stage we're at, and applying them, to life can make things easier. And as always, as I say in almost every video, I do believe in reaching out for professional help. Just doing a couple practices without leveraging a professional is just not going to be as effective, and we're cheating ourselves if we don't reach out. And if we don't have money, I do want to mention 12-step programs, which I've mentioned in previous videos. Some people have budgetary considerations, or they don't have health insurance, and so it would be really expensive. Online, you could jump into an Al-Anon meeting. Al-Anon is for not just family and friends of alcoholic. It's for anyone from a dysfunctional family, from if they had narcissistic parents, if they had immature parents, workaholic parents, or maybe their parents didn't attune to them. You knew that maybe your childhood wasn't perfect and you're still feeling some of the residue. A really good Al-Anon meeting, there's ACOA, Adult Child of Alcoholics. Again, that's a big catch-all. You can be from a dysfunctional family. Your parents don't have to be alcoholics to go to these meetings. But if you're in sort of a phase in your life where you have budgetary considerations, leveraging these online for free, which are at all times, every day, you can just find an electronic meeting, Al-Anon or ACOA, can be enormously useful. But if at all possible, or when possible, I highly recommend leveraging professional help. But as I said, we want to have some tools in between sessions that can help us stay in a state of well-being and not be swept away from all these parts that are coming out. And of course, meditation is great, and I really want to mention, I'm going to include a video in the notes, that if you're not meditating, I've learned, and this happened to me, that there is such a thing called a meditation fit, or a meditation that matches your personal style. If we're trying a certain type of meditation, and as you know, there are many, many types of meditation, and it's not a fit for us, it doesn't feel good. And in fact, we can even go backwards if we're trying to meditate and we just don't like it. For example, you may not like meditation on the breath. Maybe you just don't like the way the breath feels. I have a friend, she cannot stand the way the cold air comes in through her nose or her mouth. She never has, she's never liked it. But there are numerous other types of meditation to try. And I'm going to include this meditation sampler video by Jeffrey Martin, who has a finder's course on meditation. And if you haven't tried meditation, this video might be useful, because again, It's free, and it can help and has helped many, not everybody, but it's helped many, many people deepen their sense of well-being. For me, when I meditate now, I took the Finders course, and everybody has different results with the Finders course, but I happen to have a great result with the course. I deepen more towards almost mid turquoise. It feels really good, and if I don't do that every day, I fall back out of it a little bit. And of course, when we're sick or when we're tired or when we're triggered, we can fall back out of these states of well-being. But today I'm talking about turquoise and the superpower of turquoise only because the state of it feels good. I'm not talking about the cities. I'm not talking about the woo way of turquoise. I'm not talking about manifestation. Deepak Chopra has so many great books that they're really written at turquoise. But I'm just today talking about the state. And the good news is, while this deeper state of well-being does correlate with turquoise, and states of non-duality correlate with coral and beyond, anybody can cultivate a deeper state of well-being or a deeper state of peace. And I will also include, which I've done for several videos in the notes, the Jeffrey Martin interview on the different types of well-being and tips for how you can cultivate it, meditation, or you can watch a lot of his videos. They're free on YouTube. You could do Lester's Love, and you can find tips and tricks, take some from this video or from his videos, just to help you get through your life on a day-to-day basis, perhaps in between your parts work sessions or in between your counseling sessions. I'm assuming that a lot of people listening to this are at stage green or above. As we know, stage green and above relishes in our work. And I'm assuming if you stayed on this long, you probably do work on yourself. So we want to also cultivate that peace throughout our week in between those sessions. And I hope you found this information useful. Sending you love, and I'll see you in the next video.